In this episode, we conclude Koom's reports from the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, starting with short talks with 3 tablers. He chose them unaware that 2 have past connections to this podcast. Then, for the first time, Koom crosses paths with Mulele, who talks about his TCAF tabling adventure. A number of things went wrong for him, and we'll hear about those, as well as what went right. First, I'd like to thank our patrons for keeping this show going. Join them at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim, and this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo. In this episode, we'll hear Mulele telling Koom about the whole process of getting into the Toronto Comic Arts Festival and the various issues he ran into on his way to the con, and discussing the current state of his career overall. But first, 3 short interviews Koom did at TCAF. As we'll see, the American comics industry is like a small town. We all know each other or run into mutual acquaintances of people we've met before. The first interviewee is Harmony Becker, who I talked with for the podcast at Kaigai Manga Festa here in Tokyo last fall.
This is Koom for Deconstructing Comics. I'm at TCAF in Toronto, and I'm here with...
Hi, I'm Harmony. From Ohio.
And how are you finding TCAF so far?
It's huge. I have never been to a show that's like this many talented creators in one space, and it's crazy crowded. There's a ton of people here.
Did you want to talk to Harmony? So is this your first time at the show?
Yeah.
Okay, and so I presume you paid for like the plane and the accommodation and all of that?
I got a rental car and a hostel, so I'm
wow.
Trying to cut costs.
Okay. How are you finding the experience so far? I guess we're about, like a few hours in that you've been
Yeah, it's pretty overwhelming, but it's pretty nice. I wish I could have food at my table because I was like a little bit hungry.
You're malnourished. Yeah. I feel you. I wish I could go get food too.
I just came back from getting food though, so I just wish I could like stay at the table and like do everything at once.
Oh, why aren't you allowed to eat at your table?
It's just library rules.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay. So you said you've been doing your comic for about 3 years?
Yeah. I've been doing comics in general for about 3 years, I guess, but this series has been 1 year since it started, Himawari Share.
And tell me about Himawari Share.
It's about 3 international students who live in Tokyo in a share house together, and one of them is from the United States, one of them is from Korea, and one of them is from Singapore, and it's about like culture shock, learning a new language, being a fish out of water, reconnecting to your lingual roots, all that sort of thing.
Have you lived in Tokyo yourself?
Not in Tokyo, but I have lived in Japan for a short amount of time, and in Korea for about 1.5 years as well.
So it's based on your travels?
Not the characters, but the experiences, like somewhat.
I see. Interesting. And how are you finding the response? Like, do you find that today has significantly boosted your profile, or anything interesting that has happened?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing a lot better than I was expecting to, so that's a plus.
Oh, good. Congratulations. And it seems like you're fairly manga influenced, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your influences and where you want to take your comic?
Yeah, I guess these days, when I'm working on my comic, I look a lot at Yotsuba, which is like about like a little girl and her daily life, and also at works by Aki Irie. So just in terms of like layout and like the backgrounds and that sort of stuff, I'm like trying to learn a lot from those, because they have like very detailed backgrounds and that sort of thing.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Koom at the table for 4 panel at TCAF, and I'm here with...
Mark Laliberte.
Jonathan Dyck.
And you've got a new 4 panel coming out. Do you want to tell us about it?
Sure. So our second anthology, 4-Panel 2, is just out. It features 7 artists working around the constraint of the 4-panel comics flow.
Okay. And Jonathan, you contributed to it?
Yeah, I contributed a set of strips called Market.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you from Toronto?
I'm actually from Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Okay, and have you flown in just for this?
I flew in for TCAF, yeah,
Okay.
TCAF weekend.
Is this like a normal thing, or is
This is my second
Okay,
TCAF,
cool.
yeah.
Are you guys enjoying it so far?
Oh, TCAF is always a great experience. It's very positive, and people are really interested in the books. And yeah, it's great.
And tell me a bit more about your publishing and like what you try to do with your anthologies.
Sure. So I guess I'm publishing under Pop Noir Editions. The first few books we put out are 4-panel comics anthologies. But actually, as of the fall, I'm going to be publishing solo graphic novels by various artists. So Jessica Bartram is one of the artists we're publishing, and Ben O'Neill is another. They're both Ontario-based cartoonists.
Cool. And just to go back to 4-panel, I've seen little glimpses of it in the past. You
Sure.
definitely take a more formalist approach to comics, right?
Yeah.
Experimental/formalist.
Sure. Yeah, the whole project sort of revolves around a simple constraint of a 4-panel comics template, so like a certain locked size strip format, and we encourage cartoonists to explore that format in any way they see fit, to kind of de-emphasize the kind of punchline, character-driven sort of strip that you might normally see, and to try to treat it in more poetic form or experimental form, or even a narrative form, but something that sort of has a start and end in 4 simple panels. Yeah.
And so would Jonathan have submitted because of a proposal, or would you approach Jonathan or your other?
Well, at the front end of the project, a lot of cartoonists are just sort of contacting us to do experiments with small strips. I think Jonathan approached me. And it's based on just seeing other strips at 4panel.ca, which is our kind of strip site. And from there, I really liked his work. He seemed really enthusiastic, and I could really see a kind of curve to like his work getting a lot better in a fairly quick time. So when I kind of came to curate the second book, I thought of Jonathan as one of the artists who could really add a dynamic to what was going on.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so just to recap, this is the last 4-panel. You're just moving to solo works and stuff from now on?
No, well, so 4-panel has 3 or 4 forms. It appears as a section in Carousel magazine twice a year, and that's just single strips from different artists, always a different set of 16 artists. The books actually give artists more space, so we have 4 people in the first book, 7 in the second, and we'll continue on like that. And then the site is actually just a site where artists from around the world play with the form. On Mondays and Fridays, there's a new strip. So we're kind of exploring all of that.
All right, well, thanks so much. Unless you want to say anything to...
No, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, cool. This is Koom. I'm still at TCAF. It's busy as all blazes. And I am at a table with...
Molly Muldoon.
Molly, where are you from?
I'm from Portland, Oregon.
And which press are you helping out?
I'm currently helping out at Iron Circus Comics.
But you tell me that you're also a creator.
Yes, I've got a book that just came out 2 weeks ago from Oni Press called Deadweight, Murder at Camp Bloom. And I have a book coming out from Random House in June called The Cardboard Kingdom.
That is incredible. Are they both graphic novels?
They're both graphic novels, yes.
Okay, please tell us about yourself and what kind of subject matter and how you approach your projects.
Okay.
And you should name your books too, actually.
Yeah. So Deadweight, Murder at Camp Bloom is a YA graphic novel that I co-wrote with a friend and is illustrated. So co-wrote with Terry Blas and illustrated by Matthew Seeley. It's a YA murder mystery set at a fat camp, and it's pretty fun. And then it's Cardboard Kingdom is...
That's the one from Random House.
That's the one from Random House.
That's all you?
No, I wish. It's 10 different writers and then one illustrator, Chad Sell, and it's a neighborhood of all these different kids. And each of us kind of wrote a kid. So it's all of them in the summer, like making up superheroes that they are and making them out of cardboard and that kind of thing. And it's super fun. It should be pretty cool. It comes out on June 5th. So
cool. So how did you get into comics? How long have you been doing comics?
I got into comics mainly because a lot of my friends made comics. And Portland is a really big hub for comics.
Yes.
So
Oni is there.
Exactly. Oni Dark Horse. And
Oh yeah,
so,
Dark Horse is
yeah.
there too. Yeah.
And so I just had a lot of friends that did it. And a couple of years ago, one of my friends, the murder mystery friend, he had come up with the plot, he had come up with the murder, and then he hadn't figured out who did it yet. So he asked me, and we did it together, and that's just kind of how that happened.
Cool. And when you say you work together, do you write and draw together, or do you share duties?
The two of us wrote the script, and then a third friend, Matt Seeley, was the artist on it.
So are you primarily a writer?
I'm primarily a writer. Other people I work with are writers and artists, and vice versa. But I can't draw to save my life.
Cool. So how did you get up to TCAF?
I originally just came. Sorry, do you want to get something? He's not here. No, unfortunately not.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I just came originally to come and see the show, but Spike, who runs Iron Circus, ended up being really sick. And so last minute I kind of told her that I would be happy to run her table. So that is what I'm doing.
So did you fly or did you drive? Or?
I flew. Driving would be a very long drive.
Yeah, sorry, my geography's not the
That's all
best.
right.
And how are you finding it so far? I'm assuming it's your first time here.
It's my first time here, and it's great. I really, really love it. Everyone's super nice, and it's really chill and awesome.
Just have you noticed any differences between Oregonians and Ontarians?
Not particularly.
So is this festival kind of similar to others that you've been to? Or?
It's cool that it's free, so that anyone can come in. I really enjoy that.
Okay.
And I think it makes people more likely to grab things because they don't have to pay $60 to get in the first place.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much. I wish you luck.
Yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Molly's collaborator, Terry Blas, was interviewed in episode 576 of this podcast. Links to all three of Koom's interviewees can be found in the show notes.
Okay, this is Koom and
Mulele.
And we're in the Rex Hotel where Mulele is staying. He's in town for TCAF, and this is our post-TCAF discussion roundup. Mostly, I want to ask Mulele the process of applying to a festival like this and the process of, like, how much does it cost, all of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the process of applying is you just fill out an application and send it in. I actually sent in for a couple of cons this year, 3, and I was accepted to 2.
But would you have gone to all 3 if you'd... Could you have gone to all 3?
I could have done 2. The other one that I was going to do was not accepted. That was Small Press Expo.
That would have been very cool.
Yeah.
That's in Seattle?
No, it's in Washington. Or near Washington.
All right.
DC. But basically I applied to that one, and I applied to TCAF, and TCAF said, okay, you're in, and SPX said no. The third one I applied to is because my girlfriend was like, oh, free table? You have to apply. San Diego. But I've heard so many bad things about San Diego and not very famous comic book writers that I decided to just cancel at the last minute. I mean, they gave me a free table, but free is only free if you live there. For me, there's an extra expense of flying from Japan to San Diego, and incredibly expensive hotels while I'm there.
But isn't Toronto equally expensive to fly to, at least?
Yeah, but my reasoning was that with TCAF it was comics specific, whereas San Diego was mainly movies. And what
You're talking about the main con.
Yeah, the International Comic Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The SDCC.
Yeah, the last time I went there was 2006. I moved to LA briefly, and San Diego was being held that year, so I just kind of wandered down. Even without a hotel, wound up sleeping in my car for like 3 days. Don't try it; it's not good. But basically, I didn't want to go through all of that for a shitty con experience, so I decided to skip that one. Had a plan to travel to New York with my girlfriend, so in September. So while there, I would hit SPX. But SPX, of course, didn't work out. So I'm just going to go there without the con experience.
Cool. So I presume like none of your trip is subsidized. You're paying for all of this out of pocket, right?
Yeah.
So you're paying for your flight.
Yeah.
Presumably there's no fee to actually apply to TCAF. So then you're just paying for your table.
Yeah.
And you were in one of like the nice spots because, like I said yesterday, I tried to get in to see you, and I couldn't get into the hall you were in, which is the Blue Mapel Salon, which is one of like, it's a nice area that you can walk around on the second floor.
Yeah.
It's not as prime as like having a table on the first floor, but then again, like some big companies have their tables on the first floor.
Well, there's an option when you apply, but it's of course more expensive for that. So I got half a table on the second floor, which is, I guess, I don't know, 2/3 the price of a table on the first floor, or maybe even half the price. I don't remember exactly, but
can I ask how much you paid for your half a table?
I don't remember, but I think it was something like $150.
Okay.
Maybe 180. I don't know.
And that's a pretty good price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I'm used to Japanese cons. In fact, I should say that this is my first North American con where I've had a table. Japanese cons I've been to, usually Komitia. You pay about $70 Canadian to get a table about the same size as the table I had today, or for this past weekend.
So how much do you pay? $70?
Yeah, about $70.
Wow.
But it's a short con. This is 2 days. That one in Japan is 1 day, and it's open from 11 to 4. So it's really short.
So then in some ways, this is the better deal once you factor in the hours. But also the traffic, like I said, the line to get into the room where you were went all the way around the floor of the library.
Yeah, actually, most of the money that I made was made yesterday. I mean, today wasn't bad, but yesterday was very good.
Yeah, yesterday was insanely busy.
Yeah. But yesterday there was kind of like a panic run to get all of the books from all of the artists that you wanted to see first. And then today was kind of, there's a lot of second look traffic where people kind of floated in. It's like, okay, I saw this before and I was curious, now let me check it out. But
that's funny because for cheap bastards like myself, today is the day because like people want to like sell stuff off.
Yeah,
and then you're like, yeah, okay, let's make a deal.
Yeah, actually, TCAF sent out an announcement at the end of the con saying, in years past, we used to buy the overstock of people who were leaving town. We're no longer doing this. And I can't imagine that they would buy the overstock of everybody in the con. I don't know how that works.
No, I don't think that'd be possible. I mean, at like regular price, that would be impossible. They'd go bankrupt.
I don't know how it worked, but they just announced that they're not doing it this year, and it's like, okay. Fortunately for me, the amount of overstock that I have is enough to fit in my suitcase. But yeah.
But isn't that also because they lost your stuff?
Yeah, I was just going to get into that. Yeah. We don't know exactly what happened. TCAF is saying that the box never arrived, but all they have to go on is the tracking number, which seems to be incomplete. For both of the boxes that I sent, all that it says is box has left Japan. One box arrived, the other box didn't.
And when you say it arrived, where would it have arrived? At the show?
It arrives at the Beguiling, and they hold it there.
So if they're doing that for everybody at the show, they must have like a warehouse full of stuff.
Yeah. But as far as I know, it goes to the street address of the Beguiling. I don't know exactly what their setup is.
Why would they do that? Why would they not just say you're responsible? I mean, unless it's like a company like Fantagraphics or something.
Well, a lot of shows have this where you can send your boxes to the show directly.
But why would you do that unless you've got tons of stuff? Like, why wouldn't you just grab a second suitcase and pay the airline to like put it in the cargo hold instead of like shipping it separately?
Now this is kind of a curious thing, and I don't know how true this is or not, but what I understand is that customs is very strict in Canada. But I understand this only according to
TCAF.
TCAF's press release. And TCAF said generally, okay, don't share this information, but here's how it works at customs. Make yourself an invoice and make it out to the beguiling and, count your stock, list it, and bring it with you if you want to do it that way. Otherwise, send it, and you don't have to deal with anything at the border.
Because at the border, they would presumably tax you for bringing in stuff to sell. And the only reason I know this is because people who drive up from the States for shows have told me recently, I'm not bringing anything, or if they do bring stuff up, they don't want to take stuff back.
Right.
They want to just sell it off here.
Right. It's interesting because the reasoning that they gave in their newsletter was that customs officials don't like the idea of foreign entities coming to Canada and taking money out. And I don't know. There may be something to that, maybe not. But this not being my country and not really knowing what to expect, it's like, okay, let me keep it safe, send my boxes ahead of time. Sending the boxes was expensive. And in fact, I did not make back the money that I used to send those boxes. One box went missing. That's why I didn't make that money back. But we'll see where it lands.
Did TCAF in any way compensate you for this?
As far as they're concerned, it never arrived. So I have to go back to Japan, figure out how much the post office there can tell me, and then kind of follow the trail. And if it goes cold when it reaches Canada, then I have to contact the Canadian post office and try and pick it up from there. If the Canadian post office says, we don't know, then that's the end.
This sounds like a nightmare.
Well, the thing of it is, all I have is the word of TCAF and the beguiling. I don't know that they do this to a lot of people, but it could very well be that it never arrived. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But it could also be that it did arrive and they didn't want to cop to that. So they just like, hey, never arrived. Don't know. And the tracking being incomplete, even though I ordered a tracking number, gives them an easy out. So
why is the tracking incomplete?
I don't know. I asked for a tracking number, they put it on there, and now it's incomplete. And what they told me is that it has left Japan. I don't have any of that stuff with me now, so I can't check it. I can't verify it from my hotel room. I have to go back to Japan, look at my paperwork, and then figure it out from there. If I come to find that it was delivered and TCAF is responsible for that, then of course I'm going to ask them for compensation. They give me another table, pay for the shipping to send my stuff back, or hold it till the next con.
You'd want another table? You'd want to come back here after this experience?
Yeah. I learned a lot from TCAF. And part of what I learned is my fan base is not at all developed here. In fact, it's more developed over there. But
you mean Tokyo, Japan, where you're from?
Yeah. It's more developed in Tokyo than it is here. But at the same time, I would very much like to do more work here. And I met a lot of people here that I could kind of connect to. The problem with the Tokyo market is that you're either professional or you're amateur. There's no in between. Mm-hmm. And you're professional only when the big companies decide you're a professional. And so if you're an amateur, you're expected to kind of stay in your lane. But I don't like that. I can design and draw fine. In fact, I can do better than some of the bigger companies. But my style is decidedly not their style. Mm. So they'll never accept me. But I'm not going to change for them because I have to do it my way.
What are you working on? What is it that you're trying to get across to your fans in terms of genre, in terms of actual series? And
I'm not... It may be a little bit difficult, but I'm not aiming for fans' wants or specific genre niches. And it's more that, hey, I'm a storyteller and I've got a story to tell you.
Yeah, but I mean, just what's the name of your title and what's it about? On a basic
level. This is the thing. I'm not selling a title, I'm not selling a book, I'm selling myself. So myself as a storyteller, each time the title changes.
So you're doing like one-shots?
Not always. I have a series of science fiction books called Mind Gator. I just completed number 2 the end of last year, and this year I'll be working on number 3 as soon as I get back to Japan. I did a book, kind of a docu-comic on ghosts, which just came back from the printer, and I had copies here at TCAF. And the other book that I had was about cats and suicide. So, I mean, these are all parts
Not
of
cats committing suicide. That's like 2 different topics.
There are 2 different topics, but they are related.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, these are all like things that I've observed in my life that I kind of wanted to speak on, and so each story will be different. Each time it'll be something new, and I'm actually quite satisfied with the idea of a finite series. It doesn't need to
Sure.
drivel on forever. So my thinking is, if you like me, you'll like my story, or at least you'll understand why I wrote that. But if you are just interested in some sort of hard science fiction thing that kind of looks like this other thing, you might not like mine, because you're looking for that guy, not for me.
Okay. So I was trying to get at, would you kind of contextualize yourself? Like you say it's sci-fi, or like is there a particular style? Like I don't know much about manga, but I know they have all these different categories.
Right.
I was wondering if there's a category that you kind of would say your stuff slots into, but...
Yeah. Most often they tell me my stuff slots into the not Japanese category.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, that's the thing. Story has rules, usually set up by the writer. If you can follow through on those rules, you've got yourself a story that works.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But aside from that, themes and story concepts may vary.
Okay. So just to go back to like the TCAF experience,
Yeah.
You said you would come back. Did you make enough money to cover your trip?
No.
No, not even close.
Okay, consider this. My travel expense, hotel and flight were a package deal, so that was about $1,500. The shipping of boxes was about $250 each. So it's 2 boxes. One went missing, so the food, transportation, and stuff like that, those are other expenses. I haven't quite tallied them yet, but probably a couple $100. The money that I made from TCAF was $415.
Yeah, so that's not even close.
No, not even close.
Now, if you had the other box, do you think you would have come even close to making even?
I probably would have gone more towards $600 or $700.
So not even close. Yeah, because
No.
there are people who told me that
Right.
they made good on their trip, but
Right.
they're not coming from as far away as you are.
This is true, but this is not. The point of this trip is not just to make a profit. If that's all I'm aiming for, that I can stay with Kickstarters and Tokyo Cons. I'm looking at more of a long-term thing where I want to meet people and kind of build connections and begin to build a fan base.
Gotcha.
I was able to meet a couple of people who invested in my Kickstarters that I'd never met before, and that was really exciting. I really enjoyed that.
So how did you know them if you never met them or talked to them before?
I don't know.
They just literally found your Kickstarter through...
Yeah, I don't know. However they found the Kickstarter. Some people will find me through Kickstarter itself. Some people will find me on Facebook, or maybe I met them on Twitter somehow, or maybe on Instagram. I don't know. But wherever they found me, they were in Toronto, and I'm at TCAF, and this guy walks up to me and says, "Hey, are you the artist?" I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "I backed these 2 books." It's like, "Wow, thank you so much." And he even sent me an email afterwards saying, I was backer number 78 on this campaign. And
Now, where are my copies?
well, actually, he had a picture of his two books. But that kind of stuff really makes me happy. And so it's more of a long-term thing than a short-term profit thing.
Nice.
Coming up, making connections at TCAF. Do some people have Deconstructing Comics mixed up with some other show? The latest on Mulele's day job situation, Koom's tendency to fanboy out on Jaime Hernandez, and more. First, just a reminder that you can help this podcast by making your Amazon purchases via deconstructingcomics.com/Amazon and make that your bookmark for future purchases. We'll then get a percentage of what you spend. It costs you nothing extra and helps us cover web hosting and the other costs of presenting this show every week. We really appreciate your support. Tim and Paul race to the scene, where a 1960s Batman TV episode needs analyzing. The show's attitude toward civics.
A loyal taxpayer stooping to criminal methods.
Toward women.
A dish.
Toward time management.
All in all, Batman, you've been pretty busy.
As well as the history, the casting, and more. Tune in via iTunes or Stitcher, or visit tothebatpoles.libsyn.com for
To the Batpoles.
Did you have a good time in terms of like making connections and that kind of thing? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I did. And I sold a couple of books to a couple of people that seemed to really like my work and wanted to talk about it more or talk to me more about it. They, one of them does a podcast called 3 Women in a Room, I think. I forget her name, but I don't want to name drop anyway. But anyway, she seemed very excited about my work and also seemed very excited about Deconstructing Comics. So
cool.
Maybe a new listener coming soon. But anyway,
you mean she listens to the podcast regularly?
No, she said she had heard of the podcast but never listened to it.
You know what? A lot of people say to me, I've heard of your podcast, but they're thinking of a different podcast. There must be some other much more popular or well-known podcast that's got a similar name, because this happens to me all the time.
Really?
And I'm like, okay, so have you heard this interview or that interview? And they're like, nope. And I think this other podcast, I don't know, maybe our editor Tim can kind of do some research on this. I have a feeling it's got like maybe 3 people on it or something. Like it's a more full-on podcast kind of thing. Okay. Anyway, but go on,
but making
But it kind of works in our favor, because sometimes people think, I'm more like accomplished or legit than I really am.
No, it's totally good. Whatever gets you in the door. But I mean, these kinds of contacts are a start for me, and they may take some time to develop. Sure. Disappointed by my sales? A little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy with the people that I met. In Tokyo, it's the reverse. The sales are better, but I meet no one on a professional level.
Interesting.
And
of course,
nothing interesting.
The costs are nowhere near as much. So, like, the pressure isn't on to make those sales in Tokyo, right?
True.
Yeah.
True. Well, I mean, if my girlfriend, she gets pretty upset if I make less than a certain amount, so...
Well, it's good to have somebody like that kind of push. No, it's not good.
No, because I can't control that. It's like, hey, here are my books, it's great, and here's my postcard to pitch it. Oh, you don't like this genre? Oh, I'm sorry. And she's like crying later, like, oh, why aren't you selling? Do more.
But is she crying because she really believes your work is being overlooked, or is she crying because she expects her man to be a successful beast?
The second one.
The latter.
Yes.
Is she big in manga herself?
No, she gives no fucks.
Okay.
She's like, okay, that's what you do? All right, fine, whatever. But, just have money later.
Uh-huh.
So, I don't know. As long as I'm not doing anything illegal, she's fine.
Did you ever answer my question, what do you do for your day job?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I've talked about it on the podcast a little bit in the past, but I used to teach English. I was fired by my former employer. I'm now suing him. What?
What was his reason for firing you?
Oh, he wanted to renegotiate my contract, and I told him to get stuff. That was an illegal negotiation tactic, or that he couldn't actually legally renegotiate my contract. He said, "I'll fire you." I said, "That's illegal. If you do it, I'll sue you." He fired me, and I sued him. And so for the past year and a half, it's been kind of in litigation. And during that time, according to Japanese law, they have to pay my salary completely.
But obviously not your legal costs.
My lawyer is actually a former student.
Ah.
And he feels that he owes me some sort of like Chewbacca-like life
awesome.
debt. So he said, hey, free.
That is awesome.
And he says, if you get paid, give me a little. If you don't get paid, we're good. So
and so are you teaching at this time, or are they just obligated to pay you?
No, they're obligated to pay me, and I don't do anything. I just go home. In the interim,
Mulele, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, but it's been going on for like a year and a half now.
And how long do you think this process will happen for?
The judges are getting pissed at how long this is going. The company has said, we will fight till the bitter end. It's like,
why?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. The judges
They've
have
lost
said,
more money already than if they just pay you what they were supposed to.
Well, the judge originally said, okay, pay these guys 14 months worth of salary and it's all good and it's settled. And they said, no, fuck these guys. Well, my mother and I are actually, we were working for the same company and we're now suing them together.
Mm.
So they're like, fuck these guys. They can, take it on the arches. But when they did that, they had to start paying because it went to a real trial. And now it's been 15 months, 16 months, something like that. And yeah, they're still paying. And as we get further along, the more anxious the judges get because it's now kind of a well-known case on the floor of the courthouse.
How well known? Like, is it being reported upon?
No, not in the newspapers, just inside the court area.
Right.
The judges aren't supposed to talk to each other, but they do.
Yeah.
The shop talk is like, oh, they've got these two teachers who are suing this former company, and oh, the company's bullshit. But at least that's what it seems, because every judge...
But why do the judges even care?
They seem, and I don't know for sure, because I don't know their system in detail, but they seem to be working on a clear your caseload kind of thing. So...
It's clogging up the system.
Yeah, and so after a year and a half, the judges are now getting pissed and asking for us to settle. And so we did kind of come to an agreement. They said they would pay a certain guaranteed amount, which was low. Mm-hmm. And we said, okay, we'll do that amount, but only for 2 days a week. They didn't expect it. I'm sure they'll kick it, and then it goes back to the beginning of negotiations again. So
this would make for a fascinating comic.
Lots of people have said that, but man, I'm tired of drawing.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
And I'm also tired of these assholes. But the thing of it is, to kind of wrap up the court thing, as soon as we come to a settlement, an agreement on what we will settle on, it'll take another 4 months to work that out. So.
But will you be paid?
Yes.
So basically, you've got a stipend to just work on your work, your art.
Yeah.
And so this trip...
Yeah.
And then your other trip you were talking about makes more sense in the context of that.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, I assumed you were working a day job, and then this was like sort of like your vacation time.
I do have a day job, actually. In the interim, I got this job at a university, Seijo University, if anybody knows it. But I work there 1 day a week. And that 1 day a week, because it's a university job, pays about 3 days a week worth of money compared to the old job. So, yeah, it's all working out quite well.
I'm not feeling bad for you at all, man. That box you lost, that's peanuts.
Well, it's still money, and I still have to,
and it's frustrating. Yeah, and which is why I was a bit surprised that you weren't more angry or bitter. But now I understand that it's all par for the course for you.
Well, I can't just write it off.
No,
I mean,
it's lost money and it's frustrating.
Yeah, it is frustrating, and
that also includes maybe missed fans or missed contacts. Or
whatever. And I had samples on my table, and people were coming up with like, I want this one. It's like, sorry, the box didn't arrive.
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks.
Why not just tell them the sample anyway?
I only had one sample.
Oh, you only had one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But basically, I will investigate that and find out what happened to those boxes. And if Beguiling finds them, they said that they'll send them back. So, okay, fine. Or rather, they'll ask me what to do with them.
Yeah.
Hold them, send them somewhere in America, or send them back to Japan. Probably going to be Japan.
Right.
But anyway.
Hopefully you get it back, though, like at the very least. And maybe some kind of credit or something from the shipping company. I mean, I don't know, unless you're right, the Big Island got it. But I don't see why they would, unless just some idiot really like misplaced it.
Well, I mean, Saturday I was losing my mind, like, where the fuck is my box? And I pulled the Big Island guy aside, or one of them.
Can I ask who it was that you dealt
I don't.
with? There wasn't like a main liaison for TCAF guys?
Slender guy with a beard who did all the announcements for the floor, the second floor. So I don't know his name, but I just pulled him aside on Saturday evening and said, look, I still don't have my box. And I don't want you to bring my box to me Sunday at 4 and say, hey, we found it, because that's going to fuck me up.
Yeah.
What are you prepared to do? And he's like, we'll look into it. And this is the answer that they gave me. And the main guy from the Big Island, I forget his name.
Peter.
Last name?
Bergamo.
Slender man, gray hair.
Glasses?
Yeah, I think so.
That's probably Peter. He's the owner of the Big Island.
Yeah, he came to my table and spoke to me about it and explained what the situation was. So all I can do now is give them the benefit of the doubt while I research what happened, and wait till there's some sort of conclusion.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if the Big Island did mess up, then I'll ask them for compensation. If they did not, then I'll be asking the post office for compensation. But, I mean, either way.
I mean, what's interesting, though, is, like, the Big Island would not presumably be making much money off of these table sales. Unless, well, no, there's a lot of table sales, so who knows, really, at the end of it.
It's a government-funded
festival,
so
it's all profit, is what you're saying?
I don't know what their thing is, but if it's government-funded, I'm assuming they're not taking losses.
No.
So, really.
Yeah.
And it's not that I think that they should give me a pot of gold, but, you know.
Well, if you're willing to come back and they give you, you know, compensation in terms of, that totally makes sense. If you can put this issue aside, how is the rest of the festival in terms of, like, your first time being here, the venues, the people, the experience of the festival itself?
I've never experienced anything like it, and this is the...
You mean the sheer size, or what?
The length of it. The size is not that big. I've been to Comic-Con, which is much, much bigger. But the length of it being 2 days and running from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is really, really long. And
you know what? Like, that's just like the heart of it. There's an academic conference that ran for 2 days before. There's events all throughout the week. I mean, it's become a really sprawling thing.
Well, I was supposed to fly in on Thursday, got waylaid in LaGuardia, and couldn't make it till Friday, late morning. Airline lost my luggage, and I hadn't bathed in 2 days. I made it out for one. I hadn't bathed or slept in 2 days. Made it out for one seminar on how to socialize with other comic artists, and just kind of snuck off back to my hotel.
You need a seminar for that? You can't just walk up to comic artists?
I just wanted to hear what they had to say. And
I know. Some of them are like a little silly, I think.
Yeah, actually, I'd planned a whole day of stuff to do, but it's like I get to the hotel at 10. I'm going to get over there at 12. I'm dealing with printers in Toronto who sending me emails saying, hey, we didn't print your stuff because we lost your data. Other stuff. There's a lot of just
things that went wrong.
Junk at the beginning and middle of the con. But even though I'm happy I came, I'm happy I met all of these people, and I would like to come again so I could do some things differently.
Did you have any particularly amazing experiences with people, either like shoppers or other creators or what have you?
No, nothing particularly. You're right?
Yeah.
Nothing particularly amazing, just kind of overall I was happy to be out meeting people. And the other thing is meeting them in my own language, my first language, rather than speaking to them in Japanese getting mistranslations, not quite understanding the nuance of what they're saying, stuff like that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a good point to wrap things on, unless there's anything else you want to add.
No, nothing really else I want to add, although I have to say Toronto is a nice city to walk through.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad you liked it, and you got the good weather. We had a real cold spell, and then it became really warm. And that's what recent years have sort of been like, somewhat unpredictable. I had a good time at the con. It was exhausting yesterday when it was so busy. I got to meet Eddie Campbell, whose stuff I love, and he was like really sweet and awesome. And I got to interview him too, which we'll put up at some point. And his wife was lovely, and that was great. And I got to see Jaime Hernandez, whose work I like too much, and I know I like it too much because I think I annoyed him with and he was trying to be nice, but I think I pestered him.
What does that mean? You like it too much?
Well, it's because I'm like always like, can I buy a page from you, please? Or, like, I want to talk to you about like how you do this, and he's just like, he's just sort of like very low key about everything.
Yeah.
And then, he's not the most loquacious guy either. So, and then when somebody like me goes up like, I love your stuff, and like, I sent you like the review of this and the review of that I did of your work, and he's like, oh, thanks, and I don't sell my pages, and that kind of thing. And I think I just sort of, I don't know, maybe I'm just being hyper. So I was supposed to do an interview with him, but for whatever reason, I don't know, it got crossed. And the anxious part of me thinks like I annoyed him and he doesn't want to talk to me, but I interviewed him a year ago and it was fine, and so on. And it's a weird thing when you really like somebody's stuff and you just really like, you have this like exalted impression of them, and then you meet them, and then you best relate to them as normally and as humanly as possible. You can't relate to them as some sort of, artistic deity, or there's no way they can relate back, or it's just really annoying or fucked up or scary or whatever. But at the same time, you don't want to be like faux cool about it, because that's bullshit too, I think, in a way. So how do you find, whereas writing is the best medium for it, because then you can really express what you think, and then people read your stuff at a remove, whether they're the person themselves or not, or... So anyway, at the end of the day, I didn't get to like interview Jaime properly, but I did talk to him a couple of times, and then I sort of ended up at the Fantagraphics dinner, and I didn't mean to, but I finally met Ho-Chi Anderson, who lives here, and I can't believe that like I bought like one of his comics back in the 90s, Young Hoods in Love, and I can't believe I lived here this long. I never met him, and it took something like this festival where they were sort of promoting his new book this year, for me to like meet him, and he was so gregarious and stuff, and I was like, holy shit, like I would totally hang out with this guy all the time if like the connection had been there. And so I was going to buy a page from him, and his pages are like so modestly priced, and then we sort of kept missing each other because I had to go do stuff. And then he was just like, come to the Fantagraphics dinner. And I was like, I don't want to. I don't know if like, Jaime's going to be annoyed at me. I don't know if like, the publicist is going to be annoyed at me because, she's the one I kind of was like, can you set up an interview with? And she was, anyway. So he's like, no, come. And then I go there. And then he goes like, sit down and join us. So I joined them. And then Jaime's there just around the corner. And I'm like, I don't know. I was trying not to. Anyway, so that was my awkward kind of.
But man, see, these kinds of situations I usually don't get into.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's I don't put out that vibe. I mean, if I like someone's work, I just walk up and say, hey, I like your work, and just keep on walking. I don't even wait for them to like, oh, thank you. It's like, point. and I'm done.
But maybe it's your New Yorker thing, because remember I said you kind of reminded me just a little of Howard Chaykin.
Is he from New York?
But he's from New York. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and that might be part of a New York kind of, just the facts, man. Kind of.
Well, it could be. I don't know, but I mean, maybe it's just the way I interact with people, or maybe it's an occupational hazard from teaching English, where you're just kind of constantly dealing with other people. But now I'm just like, okay, well, just go over there. If you want to buy, put your money there. Take the comic. Goodbye. But you really can't do that at a con.
No, and that's the thing. And I would imagine you'd have to stroke customers' egos just a little bit, just to make them feel appreciated.
But I mean, the thing is, a lot of sales that I get, because I'm not a known property, are going to be from me talking to people and saying, hey, check this out, and what do you think of this, and this is about that, what do you think?
So do you feel like you're putting on a bit of a fake persona when you do that?
It's not fake. It is me earnestly trying to tell them about what I'm doing. It's just, how smoothly can I do that? I'm not that smooth of a guy, and so I'm just trying to get my message across, talk to people, and then actually, I would say there's one really interesting conversation I had about race in America versus race in Japan. This woman walked up to me and said that she is only buying from people of color, and she asked me what she asked me if I was white, and it was kind of an odd question.
How did you respond?
Do I look white? And then
what did she say to that?
Well, no, I'm asking because I'm just buying from people of color. And it's like, well, okay, that's not really a thing. But talking about race in how that is handled in Japan versus how it's handled in America, she's much more on a passive aggressive or defensive, offensive kind of bent, whereas in Japan I think it's less of a thing. It's not as dissected.
Yeah, well, it's really become the thing here. I mean, sometimes it just comes up in conversations, and it can be very alienating, and sometimes it can be insightful or helpful. But most of the times, I find it's anyway. Yeah. Well, anyway, I wish you luck. You're off to Chicago for a quick jaunt, and then you're back here, and then back to Tokyo.
Pretty much, yeah. Just visiting relatives.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Tell us what you think. Write us at mail@deconstructingcomics.com or contact us through social media. Find all the links on the right sidebar at deconstructingcomics.com. We're also on the Comics Podcast Network at comicspodcast.com and on comicon.com, where our new episodes go up on Fridays, give or take a day. Also, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find podcasts. Tell the world why you enjoy Deconstructing Comics. Our theme is from bensound.com. Once again, don't forget to help support the show with a pledge at patreon.com/deconcomics. This coming Monday, a new episode of Critiquing Comics with an update on Mulele's box. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.